Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Blood Pledge, a Korean horror film from 2009, and this is the fifth film in the Whispering Corridors franchise. Four friends make an oath sworn in blood to commit suicide one night, but the next morning only one is found lying dead on the school grounds. Rampant speculation about the nature of the incident races among the student body, but the three surviving friends are tight-lipped about any of the details. However, when the victim's sister begins searching for answers, the plot as well as the survivors begin to unravel. Now, this remarkably impressive film series kind of takes a turn for the worse in this installment. My personal favorite is the fourth installment, Voice, but every single title in this franchise up to this point has been entertaining, good quality, and made its own contributions. Unfortunately, I don't believe that's the case here. Blood Pledge, or also known as A Blood Pledge, does have some similarities to, I would say, the third entry, Wishing Stairs, in its, commercialized mainstream feel, but it lacks the positives that made that entry effective. The storytelling structure here, it shifts back and forth in time, requiring the viewer's attention, but it does lack a dramatic core to everything. It's lacking the drama. This is partially due to the lack of, you could say, everyday living moments that build the characters, since the entire film is used to show basically unlikable schoolgirls bickering with each other over and over again. You don't really get, that much bonding. A lot of the other films will have really kind of personal moments between the characters. It kind of helps you get a feel for their relationship and really develop that friendship aspect. I don't really get a lot of that out of this film. None of the characters in this film are really endearing or really that interesting. The friendships, not properly showcased or developed, and unlike its predecessors, it's not heartfelt at all. All four of the previous films kind of, it hits you emotionally a little bit. They're heartfelt, and really they have a heart to them. This one, I really did not care when bad things happened to any of these characters. I just didn't care. And that's a big problem with a film of this type, and it was certainly not a problem for any of its predecessors. The plot turns that establish the rivalry between some of the girls, kind of lame and cliche. There's one in particular you'll see. It's like, oh, really? They just kind of resorted to that. It's kind of cliche conflict. Think to yourself, what could be a conflict between two girls? And that's what they do. It's like, eh. So, and it lacked development as well. I've actually seen this film 3 times over the past 10 years or so, and the same thing happens to me every time I watch it. By the midpoint of the film, I start getting bored with it. You know what I mean? It starts to lose me, and I kind of struggle with the second half of this. It's just, there's, in a horror film like this, you need that character and that drama. You know what I mean? This isn't like, like a brainless horror film that's just really fun to watch. Doesn't have it. There are some other flaws as well. The horror sequences themselves, less artistic and effective than the predecessors. They seem just kind of cheap and not well thought out. Some very basic Unreal-style ghost scares here that we've already seen in a bunch of Asian ghost films. The camera zooms in on the ghost with blood on her face, and she makes a mean expression, and they repeat that one a few times. It's real low-hanging fruit type stuff here. There are a few egregious jump scares as well, which I don't appreciate. They're not even set up properly, which makes them feel rushed. It's hard to remember any specific creative horror sequences in this entire film. When I think about it, I try to pinpoint a scene. And there's always scenes in the other films you're like, oh, I remember that scene or that scene. You know what I mean? You don't get that here either. I would say Blood Pledge, significant downgrade from Voice in terms of its art design and lighting. I know Voice was a little over the top a little bit in terms of its style, but man, if you're watching these chronologically and you go from Voice to this, it's just a letdown. The film looks pretty good overall. It's competent, but it's lacking in a distinct style. You know what I mean? Kind of separate it. The acting's fine. Still feels like a slight downgrade, though. You know, unlike the last 3 installments, which had, you know, Hyojin Kong, Ji-ho Sung, and Okbin Kim, you know, 3 very recognizable actresses who kind of took off in their careers. You know, this one, Blood Pledge, I don't know. I mean, you got a few actresses that did stuff later, but no one really noticeable in an early role. You know, not a requirement per se, but it would have helped a little bit, you know, considering the underwhelming quality of the story in general. So, A Blood Pledge, probably one of the more disappointing Korean films that I've seen ever. You know, it's not like a terrible film. You know, like I said, you know, it's just so, like, average to below average in a lot of ways. And there's nothing that really makes it pop. I remember watching this, you know, loving the first 4 installments and sitting down and watching this and like, man, that was disappointing. And it's been disappointing every time I've seen it. So I don't think I'm going to change my mind about this one. So yeah, I mean, you know, if you watch the whole series, I mean, you watch the first 4 and you like them all, I guess you may as well watch this. But I think most people think that this is the weakest one out of all of them, from what I've seen online. But if you disagree, let me know. But yeah, I don't really recommend it, but if you want to watch it, it's available on Vudu streaming online, and it has a physical media release. Apparently, there's a 6th Whispering Quarters film that was recently made. I think they completed it. It might be in post-production, and it's, I think, scheduled to be released either at the end of this year or next year. I think it's called The Humming or something like that. So we'll have to see. I mean, you're like 11 years removed from the last film, and the last film really wasn't that good. So I'm kind of, I'm cautiously optimistic. But, you know, at the very least, we'll have those first 4 films to go back to that are so solid. So, you know, hopefully the 6th one is better than Blood Pledge. So those are my thoughts. And as always, I'll see you next time.